Hey, welcome to the Pittsburgh City Paper Podcast. Joined today by Margaret Welsh and Charlie Deach because last week Margaret posted a picture that I found really interesting. It was an album cover for an album called You Are My God, Kids Sing Psalms. Margaret, do you want to just tell us a little bit about why you posted that last week and what the story is behind it?
Well, my brother sent me a photo of this album with the text saying, "Are you getting royalties for this?" And it was a kids choir, an album made by a kids choir that I was included in. And the cover is all of the kids who were in the choir. We're all wearing colorful shirts, and some people are holding balloons. And so basically it's a bunch of kids singing a cappella psalms from the Bible. Psalms. Yeah. Yes. And it's sort of, as you've heard, a little atonal.
Yeah. Do you have fond memories of it?
I sort of. I remember it being kind of like a big deal. My sister, since this has been in conversation a lot lately, my sister was telling me about how she was jealous that I was a part of it and she wasn't. But it was 2 long days of recording. I know there was like one time where we got to go outside and like run around. But mostly we were getting scolded for making too much noise during recording. But I mean, you know, my best friend Annan was part of it. I didn't get to sit next to her, so I was sad about that.
Which one is she?
She's holding a balloon. I was really upset that I didn't get to, I didn't get to hold a balloon, but she's next to me in the picture. She's wearing a purple shirt.
Okay. So we should say, or I'll just say from my own opinion, we're not mocking this in any way. It is just, I find it kind of bizarre.
Mm-hmm. It is bizarre.
The title is definitely bizarre. Is You Are My God, is that the name of one of the songs or something?
It is.
Okay.
Yes. That's the title track, you might say.
Is there a second part of that? You are my God.
I will praise you. I think the second verse is You are my God, I'll exalt you. This is like I'm realizing like pretty ingrained in my memory.
Yeah. Like when we listen to it, does it come back immediately?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually, it's weird because I Charlie downloaded this album. It's very, very modern. When I just have a
Yes,
right.
I was listening in the car this morning.
Well,
he was like, "That's too much."
He lost his vinyl copy of it.
I
did. And had to download it. I just had a cassette of it that I can't find. It's at my parents' house somewhere. And actually, I wish I could find this. There's like a companion photo to the cover photo where I remember they were like, "All right, look serious. And now look really happy," and then everyone like was supposed to throw their arms up. And
that's a classic '90s move.
Yeah.
That expression of happiness.
Throw your hands in the air and worship like you just don't care.
Exactly. And then there was like a promotional poster for this tape that was like whatever. Okay, say there's like I don't know how many kids are in that picture. 20 kids recording 12 psalms over 2 days is serious business. So we managed to have fun and like
That's always good.
Yeah. So
Charlie, did you recognize any? Do you know any of the lyrics? Did you know those songs?
I did. The Lord is my shepherd, obviously, because I'm not a piker. But yeah, a lot of these I really didn't recognize.
Are they like esoteric songs?
Well,
are there underground songs?
Well, I mean, if you read the Book of Psalms,
haven't.
Well, that's your own problem. But they're in there. The thing. So I grew up in a denomination called Reformed Presbyterian, which is kind of like a conservative branch of the Presbyterian Church, and they have what's called exclusive psalmody, where they only sing psalms, lyrics that are taken directly from the Book of Psalms, and no instruments are allowed, so it's all a cappella. And in church, you have the psalm books that have like the parts written out, so everybody kind of like knows their parts, and it sounds really cool, actually, like a pretty impressive choir. Unfortunately for this tape, for Kids Sing Psalms, it's all just one part. No one's throwing in the cool
no
extra parts.
Yeah.
So that's why it sounds a little rough.
Okay.
But the point of the tape is, I guess, was to help young kids to learn Psalms, and I think that there is to hide God's word in their heart, as I think is maybe one of the titles of the song.
How about
Thy word have I hid in my heart.
Look at that. That's verbatim, folks.
Wow.
Let's take a listen.
Like,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They're really trying to bring home that so I don't sin thing.
Yeah.
So I don't sin, so I don't sin, so I don't sin.
I know, it's sort of, I mean, of course I was like very in this world at that time, so it's kind of bizarre to listen to it now and feel kind of like protective of it in a way.
Yeah.
Before this I was kind of like, I don't know if I really...
Yeah, you didn't know if you wanted to post it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked my friend if I should post it. She was like, yeah, definitely. But I was like, this is kind of embarrassing.
Well, see, we've been, laughing about it a little bit because it is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
It's very funny.
But, my parents, my dad was raised Jewish, my mom was raised Catholic, but neither passed that on to me. I didn't get either of those, so all of my music had nothing to do with religion. But on a more serious note, when we were talking to Jen Gooch a few weeks ago, I thought it was really interesting when you both talked about the importance of the significance of being a woman in church and the role that played in music and being a musician growing up. So obviously you haven't thought about this in a long time, but do you think it plays a role in how you think about music in general as an editor?
I think probably in some ways. I mean, I know just in terms of someone once made fun of me for sounding like every time I sing that I'm singing in a choir. And so that's just in like... Right, I know. Well, I mean, it is kind of this sort of like, kind of like no soul whatsoever.
Oh.
I also listened to a lot of musicals growing up because I was very cool.
Yeah.
So
Anything
I think that's
in particular
also
that you want to share?
Musicals?
Yeah, like Smokey Joe's Cafe, Ren.
West Side Story.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, the classic.
Sorry.
Some music.
Yeah.
You look like a how do you solve a problem like Maria type girl.
Yes.
I know it.
All of them really. Anything I could get into. Les Mis. That's the dorkiest one of all.
Yeah. Some of the melodies are great.
Yeah. And the people who are into that are so annoying. And anyway, that's off track. But I think that like I said about the singing parts. I mean, I always took music lessons growing up, but I can sight read. At least I had a lot of practice sight reading because of being in church. And so I think that I have kind of like a very formal, in some ways, attitude towards music that I've had to let go of a little bit. And just kind of like, this being in a church where the attitude towards music is sort of strict in a way, where it's like very limited. But also it's kind of cool because there aren't that many situations in life where you're listening or participating in a cappella singing like that.
It's not even a tambourine.
Nope, nothing. And the extent of kind of like, when Jen was talking about it, she was talking about like women playing piano in church or things like that. And in my church, the extent of it was like someone stands up at the front and like conducts and like has a pitch pipe and it's like and then and then So.
Yeah.
Do you think technically like beatbox would be allowed in your church? Because it's not. You see, it's not exactly an instrument, but it's
I don't. It's
You didn't run into that?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it's not. Their perspective is that if it's not commanded, then it's implicitly forbidden. So I don't think there's anything in the Bible about beatboxing.
Well,
therefore, it is implicitly forbidden.
I think the Lord was a big Bobby McFerrin fan.
Was.
Well,
nobody likes him.
Nobody likes Bobby McFerrin anymore.
So Charlie,
Yes.
your dad was a.
He was a pastor. We were like a kind of a non-denominational Protestant church. Music was a big part of it, and I have to say, as we were sitting and you asked about the Psalms, and I was talking to Margaret. I grew up. I mean, I went to church every Sunday probably for the first 16, 17 years of my life,
Right.
and then once on Wednesday for youth group and youth choir and stuff. But I didn't learn a fucking thing. I really didn't. I'm like, because I'm sitting thinking, I think I knew the New Testament books once, but I was just thinking, how far could I go? And I think Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, and then that's it. And I know there are Acts.
Wow.
Acts.
Learned a lot.
Act 2 popcorn. That's the brand.
My dad was always my Sunday school teacher too, so it was I had to learn that stuff. But I think that was also the reason I didn't have to study real hard, because it was my dad's most doing that crap. But yeah, I mean, I generally know the stories. I generally know the don't do this, don't do that, and so forth. But yeah, Margaret's got a deep knowledge that just I think comes on recall. I don't have that. I don't have that. It's not ingrained to the point that it's. But the music was very formative for me, because music was a big part of the church, and not like some of the churches today where there are very contemporary services where they have full bands and stuff like that.
Right.
There's always an organ or piano or something like that, and my dad would always try and jazz up the hymns. I think my dad was a drummer. My dad was a great drummer. He would play drums occasionally, not during services, but during special events or stuff like that at the church. But my dad was a great drummer. My dad was very musical. My dad was very soulful too when he sang and he played.
He was a baritone.
Yeah, baritone. And so he would always try and he would sing the verse, and out of nowhere, if it was Love Lifted Me, if it was Love Lifted Me, my dad would yell, Lifted Me. That was that kind of stuff. He would burst into that. He was always trying to jazz up the tunes and stuff. So so that was a huge part of my life, and I think that's more what I liked and remembered more about church than the actual lessons that they taught. But the music, I will occasionally, I probably have some on here. I have some gospels and some stuff on my CD, or on my CD player, on my 8-track, on my MP3 here. So it's a big part of my life that's stuck with me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking yesterday about in pop music. For some reason it was just a coincidence, but I said Jack White and Frank Black, which is a nice, cute way to put it. But I always find that when you listen to artists who have that background, they're able to, it just feels like there's a grand scale, there's a lot at stake, because they grew up fearing hell. It's just no matter what, that'll give just a little bit more to it. And we were talking, Margaret and I were talking yesterday in the kitchen about Bob Dylan versus Johnny Cash, and how maybe Dylan's poetry and the metaphor and all these different pieces working, I don't know, but the simplicity of the Johnny Cash in that, I think it feels very religious. It just feels like there's almost like a biblical story where it's just a simple metaphor for you to relate to. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that, Margaret?
I do.
She's not.
Yeah, a lot of Johnny Cash's gospel stuff was I don't know if you've ever listened to the Johnny Cash. I probably happen to have it here, but the Johnny Cash Christmas album is sort of one sort of tale, but it's told in that badass Johnny Cash way. There's one, was it called The Stranger or The Christmas Stranger or something like that? It's basically a story about I'm sure it's a metaphor for Jesus or Santa or something, but it's the stranger came to my door and I helped him and and it's just a great thing. But it's it's better than any time you could sing. It's better than any version of Silent Night you've ever heard. It's just Johnny Cash is up there.
This is why
it's pretty awesome.
This is why I always buy my mom Johnny Cash CDs for her birthday.
Not the Bob Dylan Christmas album?
I buy that for my dad.
It was going down.
Have you heard that? The Christmas Bob Dylan Christmas album? It's just wild.
You can do anything.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to say those things.
That's
I never was. Never.
Yeah.
Because you fear hell.
I do fear hell. Well, I think with a lot of people who grow up, whether you're a musician or not, you if you're in the church, you certainly, like I said, even though I didn't learn a ton of lessons, I still grew up fearing hell. So I was like, I was like, man, I'm probably, screwed because I'm not doing all the stuff that, that I'm supposed to be doing necessarily. So I think when you grow up, you either continue to fear hell or you realize maybe it's not the fire and brimstone type situation they talk about. Mm-hmm. So you sort of, you sort of relate that I'm not scared anymore kind of a thing. It's sort of like you're willing to, make more jokes about, God and Jesus. You know what I mean? Like you're willing to like take chances or to write lyrics that are more, sort of not even screw religion, but just sort of, I think there's something out there, but I'm not sure it's all the crap you've been telling me, sort of thing. But
all right, Margaret, should we close out with one final tune?
Yeah, let's see. What's on here?
Just one moment, please. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
When I feel afraid now.
Do you feel afraid now, Mark?
A little bit.
One thing we were talking yesterday too about music and talking about artists, and I think I mentioned to you guys about Parker Millsap, an Americana artist who grew up in had a strict Pentecostal upbringing, and as he got older, he started to, he's sort of the mind, maybe there's something out there, but I don't think it's this situation you're talking about, and his kind of idea is maybe we're not supposed to know, and his music is sort of definitely taken on the kind of the idea, like he has a song about the rapture, and he came for my sister, but he did not come for me, and all the guy did was basically go a different path. He didn't continue to follow the Bible. I mean, it wasn't like he went out and killed somebody, but those are the kinds of things. It's like, if you came up in that upbringing and you no longer have that level of belief that you had when you were 9 or 10 years old, there is a part of you that's like, this shit still might go down, and I'm probably screwed.
Yeah.
So
it's scary.
And that's, listening to this, it kind of makes me a little scared. No, not really. It makes me, like, nostalgic in a way that it's like, I kind of miss being a part of that, but...
Do you miss being a part of it, like, now, or do you think you miss being a part of it back then?
Well, do you mean in terms of it just being, like, general childhood nostalgia?
Well,
versus,
I mean, do you miss the church... Because I too sometimes, I miss sort of the community that I had growing up in the church, and I miss the friends I had growing up in the church. But I don't necessarily so I think it would be fun to kind of go back to those times when I didn't sort of start thinking about other things and maybe thinking about fallacies that I may or may not have been taught. Or do you think that it's still something useful that you could use today? Like you miss it now in your life, maybe to the level it was.
I think it's both a little bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily want to go back and be the same person that I was, but I think that I don't know, I feel like I'm always striving to find some sort of balance and kind of I hate to say it as taking what I can use, because I always think that's kind of condescending and lazy seeming, but at least finding as much nuance and
Did I say that yesterday when we were talking? Because I've said that before.
Yeah.
I do. And it's I don't mean to be lazy and condescending, but I do. I take what I think is not just what I can use, but I think what makes sense or what is useful,
well,
and then I leave the rest. And the rest being not I don't like pick and choose commandments. Well, I shouldn't steal, but
I love to kill.
Yeah, I love to kill, so I'm not going to fuck that. For me, mainly it's the social stuff.
I don't think it's so much picking and choosing, but realizing what kind of sorting through the baggage and realizing what is just kind of the baggage of other people passed down to you.
Yeah.
That, the social stuff, or,
yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to close out here with I Will Sing of the Mercies of the Lord
Forever.
Forever.